I think we move on to our agenda, to the annual State of the City address, which I will give. And so with that, I'm going to come down there because I'm far more comfortable doing that than sitting up here. So, first of all, welcome everyone. I am Gus Pappas. I am the mayor of the City of Bellaire. In November, I ran unopposed and was, actually I was kidding around. I think Brian and maybe Ross, maybe Wynn, they were all involved in a little bit of a bet as to who would end up getting the most votes. And so it was the most Mr. Popular contest. I think I edged you guys out just a little bit, Anyway, it occurred to me that many of our positions were unopposed, and I think in large part because I believe that we are in the right direction. I think we are going in the right direction, and I think that it is no lack of interest in the city. We certainly will be having another election coming up here in May with regard to an open spot on our city council, and there will be certainly interest in that. Which shows the interest that we have in the city. One of the things that I think is most exciting about what has occurred over the last couple of years, and the boards and commission chairs that have come up and spoken to you before this evening show that. And there is a true excitement and value in serving this city. You can accomplish a great deal through volunteerism. And I think people recognize that. I think they recognize the ability to have an impact in the city in which they live. And I think you saw that in the reports that you gave and the accomplishments that each of our boards and commissions made on the city. And I think you're seeing it at City Council. We are doing so in a professional manner. We all have differences of opinion, but we are able to put them out there and to discuss and debate issues and come to a decision that's in the best interest of the city. Now, about December time, Mark Davidson, who's a judge, former judge in this town, is also very much a historian, lives in Bellaire, resident of Bellaire, came before us, and he talked to us about 2025 being the anniversary, some decade anniversary, of West University's failed attempt to take in the city of Bellaire and make it a part of West University. And there was a big, huge court battle, and ultimately, the city of Bellaire won, and here we are many, many years later, and as I quoted, I don't recall it, but I was quoted as saying, we won, they lost, and now we are all out of here. But the fact of the matter is that we have had tremendous people that have been involved in the city of Bellaire, and it starts way back then. The lawyer that was representing us ultimately came an eyelash away from being the vice presidential candidate for FDR. He'd been that, we would have had the president come from the city of Bellaire. So it's very interesting. The people of this city have had an impact for a long, long time. For several weeks, as part of a continuing historical effort, I have been trying to bring this up, and I thought I'd choose this evening as an opportunity to do so. It is a newspaper article and shows the map of Harris County showing proposed system of highways. And right, I believe, here, right there, is the construction of Bellaire Boulevard all the way into our town. And this was, what is the date? Circa, it's a federal program, $1 million, 1926, 100 years. And so that's why I tell you about this today, is that the road and the money that was generated for it began 100 years ago this year. There are many milestones that our city has, and I think another one, Cheryl was telling me about that in 1976 we put in a time capsule, did we not? Have you found it yet? No. Okay, so, which is interesting, and then he goes, of course, Gay talked to us about the banners on the street signs celebrating the 250 years. And so there's this time capsule that was put in by somebody here in this town in 1976. And we have a photograph of it. There's actually a newspaper article, so it's real. There's a little plaque. We're just not sure where it is. And so I'm taking this opportunity to mention it to everyone. Unfortunately, the folks that probably would have a little bit more knowledge about this are BeLive folks. Presented early. But I'll be talking to them and see who remembers what. But I think it's a task for all of us to take a look and see where is the capsule, and then so at some point in time this coming year, we'll be able to look into it. Our history is important. It is important for many, many, many reasons. One, we know where we have come from, and then two, we know how we've gotten to where we are, and then we certainly know the positive direction and know where we want to go. The theme of this year's State of the City, and by the way, the state of the city is strong, as you will see, is change is progress. I will throw a bit of a caveat to that and say that in this particular instance, progress is also growth. We are not getting any bigger, as all of y'all know, but we have done a great deal to change the way that the city looks. We have done a great deal to take a hard look about the city that we have, what we actually want here, and how to get it, and how to make it happen. And this has occurred in several different ways. We have as part of our change is progress. I'm going to move it. There it is, change. We start with our capital improvement project. We have done a lot in this town over the years. There's no question about it. This building was built not too long ago. The police station was built not too long ago. The new courts building was built not too long ago, as well as our civic center. These things have been done by councils in the past, but never have we embarked on capital improvements like we are embarking on now, and all of that was paid by work that was done in 2025. And so I bring you, we have established a capital projects division that will be headed up by Umar Khan. Khan, where are you? You're here somewhere. There he is, right there. We have never had that before. These projects are of such value that we need to have a division to help them to allow all of these things to be done not only timely, to make sure they're done correctly, that the city's protected. We have a layered system here. We have not only the director of the capital projects, we have a project coordinator in Carter Field. We have staff augmentation with liquidity, because what we have to make sure is, one, we have to have quality people do the work. We have people overseeing them to make sure that that's done in liaison with the city. And at the same point in time, we have to make sure that the bills are paid and that the back office work that needs to be done so that we have no liens, that the projects are done timely, and that they're moving forward. That takes effort. We have developed a capital projects division because we have, we start with Cypress Ditch. Now, back in July, on July the 3rd, I stood before many of you perhaps, but certainly with regard to the issue of Cypress Ditch. Two things are happening here. First and foremost, we are starting on one of the biggest infrastructure projects we have had in this town. It is $110 million. Several years ago, the city understood and knew what it had to do to address its flooding in this town. After Harvey in 2017, we developed a committee with regard to developing, looking at, obtaining ideas of what we could do to help ourselves with this. They worked tirelessly for years, which ultimately culminated in, first and foremost, we have to do something about Cypress Ditch. It is not in the city of Houston, as all of y'all know, and as I said before. But nevertheless, it is what we drain into and what we have to fix if we are going to fix anything. Now, this is a monumental task because it's not enough just to be able to drain into it, but we have to convince the city of Houston this is something that you should let us do. Now, that wasn't really the hard part. The hard part was getting the money. First and foremost, though, before you get the money, you $40 million and get it to the tune of almost 70% of our voters. But we went to the state of Texas and we told them we need help from you because this will help the regional drainage in this area. And they gave us $54 million. That has never been done before. And that effort was created by everybody in this town that touched it. And many, many did. That was surprisingly, I'm going to say this quietly, that was actually surprisingly a lot easier than I thought. But in many respects, it was because the homework had already been done, and the people saw the value in that project. But that was not enough. So you get the money, 54 from the state. We have 40 that this city put skin in the game. Well, that doesn't get us quite there. There had been $15 million that had been put hadn't been authorized. The biggest job is to go to Harris County Commissioners Court and get them to tell you that they need to authorize that for the merger. So myself, I think when you were there, Ross was there, I think Sharon was there, Beth, I know you came, Chris, maybe you were there. We had a group that went there. We sat in front of them. We asked them humbly for the $15 million and we approved it. Helping with the flood mitigation in this town, first and finally. For all of those who have served on all those flood mitigation task force committees, I know, Millie, you've been on it. I know you were there. For all of those who have served on that, thank you. And this is the culmination of all of your work. It is finally coming to fruition, and we will be breaking ground sometime in 2026. We had the opportunity to celebrate with our state representative, Ann Johnson. Senator Molly Cook was here. Dottie Hall from the office of Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher. It took a tremendous amount of effort to get all of those folks and everyone else in the state of Texas to focus on tiny little Bellaire and say $54 million is worth giving those folks because we have confidence that they will be able to do the job and the work. We also took in $6 million that we had saved on our own from previous 2016 bonds for Better of Bellaire. And during that period of time, we have added that so that we can do all the groundwork that's necessary to make this project go. There's Ann who came forward with us. Myself, Molly had a few questions. I'd like to pass you Molly. And then, of course, there's several of us there in front. Truly a wonderful day on the 3rd. As you can see, part of this project are some other hard decisions. The wastewater treatment plant is another hard decision that we had to make. Look, government and governance is not an easy task. You are faced with one group of people on this side basically at the top of their lungs, metaphorically, telling you this is the way you need to go. And then you've got another group over here that's telling you this is the way you need to go. The people that have sat up here on these chairs, not only just now, but in prior years, have all been folks who have looked at these jobs very, very seriously. They take it seriously. It is not easy to listen to this side and then this side and to make a decision. But that's what leadership is about. This council took the position after listening to a great deal of information. And thank you, Beth Jones, our assistant city manager and engineer, for all your hard work. She sat up in front of a group of people of maybe 100, 150 citizens and fielded all questions with regard to this project. You see, what we decided to do was to take this offline. It had been 80 years since this plant roughly had been built, and it was time to either do something about it and fix it or take it offline. Not an easy decision. On one hand, you're talking about something that provides tremendous amount of independence for the city of Bellaire. But on the other hand, it was something that was going to cost us anywhere between $100 and $130 million to fix, at which point in time we would have nothing more than a garden variety water treatment plant with no bells and whistles, and now something that costs us $130 million to fix that we would have to continue to put $2 to $4 million each and every year to maintain it, something we had never done. This council made the very, very hard decision of saying, you know what? We can use that land. We can decommission this. We can go to Houston. We can put a pipe across the street, connect to Houston for a whole lot less, maintain very similar, if not less, rates for our citizens, and we can use that land to help bolster the project that we are embarking on, which is called Cypress Ditch, and have the detention necessary so that we can take our water when we need to put our water into Gray's Bayou. It was a very difficult decision, but it was one that we made without a whole lot, with a whole lot of anxiety about it. So we believe it's the right decision, and we believe that the city of Bellaire will ultimately benefit by it. Our public works building. For many years, and I think it goes back to 2015, our public works building back in Mayday or the tax day flood, one of those flooded. We didn't have a place for our public work. That whole area, and if I go back to the previous one, it was in those shaded areas before. If I go back to that, you'll see that's where things were flooding. They have had no home for going on a decade. It has been on the works to do something about it. Public works is important in this town because they pick up our trash, they pick up our recycling, they keep our place clean, they handle our pipes, they handle our sewer pipes, they handle our pumps, they handle the wastewater treatment plant, and everything else that public works deals with. And they had no home within which to do it. Mark, your folks, congratulations on all the directors that have worked before you, because y'all literally did. You did it with baling wire and duct tape, and you kept the city together. But we have committed, this council has committed to $7 million to purchase the land right over here off Glenmont, and we have put together, and we have committed another $7 million to renovate it and had a wonderful public works facility that not only will be able to house all of our vehicles, we will have indoor storage as well as a lay-down yard for all of our materials. That is underway. Now, if that wasn't enough, we move to Pappas. The infrastructure, we've talked about the major ones, but you see, it's not just the big stuff that we do. It's the little stuff as well. We, at the same time, had to rehab our Renwick water plant. We've created a new dog pound that was over there off 610 South near NRG. The Evergreen Park Master Plan Phase 1, as many of y'all, when y'all walked in, you saw some of that. That is underway. The lighting, the play structures at Lafayette and Mulberry Parks. And, of course, we've got the access control and camera system upgraded to the recreation center, the library, the aquatic center, and the fire station. There is a lot of David work that goes on in this town. There is the Goliath work, and then there's the David work, and you can see it virtually every day. Public safety, we hired 4 new police officer positions. We have grown as a first responder. We added 29 AEDs and public safety vehicles. We have a new fire engine that's been purchased. Patrol cars to include ballistic glass and windshield and side windows. Now, this was not done by just city council alone, but it was also done with our community partners, which is why Gay and her committee thought it was absolutely a wonderful idea to make sure that we celebrate their work too, and that is why the calendar has community partners in it. The dogs and the cats are lovely, but at the end of the day, they're not buying new fire engines. They might be riding on some of them. We also have a false alarm management system, and because of the fact that what we are trying to do is to make sure that we focus our attention on the things that keep us safe. Shane O'Sullivan, who is there he is right there, is our new acting police chief. We are in the midst and will be starting a nationwide search for a police chief. But in the meantime, Shane, homegrown here, is handling things, and we are in good position. Thank you, Shane, for taking on that role. Economic development. For many years, this city sat back and thought to itself, with the good work of the Planning and Zoning Committee and Jamie and her group, we're doing all the time is if we set the table, they'll show up for but it never really worked that way. For many, one of the things that always bothered me, and I will just share this with you personally, is the notion that we would sit here, and I know I could see it in the planning and zoning chairs, and the anxiety that they would feel and the residents would feel when they were out here and a project came for us that was great for the presenter, but for the city wasn't necessarily what the city wanted. And so the residents would come and they would have anxiety. They would be anxious for not only the planning and zoning committee, but also for council. Because sometimes you were in favor of it and sometimes you weren't. Because we sat back and we didn't really look at what we want as a city. I think we have seen the folly of those days, and I think over the last year or two that we have been pushing for the standpoint of saying, if we want the city to be what we want, then we have to make it happen. Exactly what we did at Cypress Ditch, even though it's not in Bellaire, we were going to make it happen. And that is what we've done with regard to economic development. What has happened as a result of that? Well, we got a condente here. I hear it's very good, expensive, but very good. Paul's Wine Fix, Mia's Table is coming, and there are others. But more importantly, Trader Joe's. Yes. Look, I see Trader Joe's and H-E-B as just hallmark. H-E-B is the best, it's certainly the best grocery store chain in the state of Texas, and I think the state of Texas really calls them ours. And I know that people around the country understand and appreciate it. Well, we have a great one here. And now next door to it will be a Trader Joe's that people will be coming around. People in West U, people in Southside, people in the Heights area. People are talking about the fact that you guys got one. That's right, we did. And they're coming here, and that is going to be a centerpiece. And we are not stopping with these items. This council is very committed because we have hired an economic development consultant, and we are going to continue on with that. We have work to do in the future, and there are many projects ahead. Now, look, we didn't stop there. I love this. Vin Diesel and Litter McQueen. We bought 2 garbage trucks. I don't know, have we ever named them before? We never named them before. And but we have garbage trucks that have names on them because, again, it's not just the big Goliath work, it's the David work every single day. As y'all can see, I made sure that champagne broke. I literally saw a video one time of a guy tried 5 times. So that one was free. But it didn't stop there. We have more program offerings at Recreation Center, Camp, the library. We have our library mobile app. We have our credit card payment system. It's the little things. And certainly we've had customer service surveys throughout the city. Why? Because at the end of the day, we want to know what the residents think about particular issues. Because that's what it's all about. It's about service. The systems. Now, George, this is way above my pay grade and knowledge level, so I'm just going to read it off. But suffice it to say, the list is long and distinguished. We've implemented an Encode 10 financial platform software. I'm taking George's word for it. It's a good thing for the city. We've upgraded our SCADA utility control and information system. That is actually very important. Upgraded Laserfish document management system. We have a new work order system. I can't tell you how important that is because for so long, the city didn't know what it had done historically. We didn't know if we had fixed a gutter on a particular street. We didn't know if we had fixed, whether or not the certain sewer lines or water lines had been repaired. We didn't know. If we didn't have somebody who remembered it, from a documentation standpoint, we didn't know. This will help us know so that we can better handle the needs of our residents in the future. GIS for utility asset management. We have reconfigured our online permitting system for improved customer experience, data dashboards for improved communication with decision-making, and electronic employee performance evaluation system. Look, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is make sure that we can service the citizens of this town better and better and better and more efficiently. The demands of folks are rising. They're not dropping. They're rising, and we have to stay ahead of the curve. City code. We have updated zoning ordinances to align with comprehensive plan. You heard Jamie talk about that when she gave her report. We've updated 2024 ICC codes and electrical codes. You heard Todd talk about that when he gave his report. Fats, oils, and grease ordinance as well with regard to our restaurants in town. And we tackled the really very, very difficult issue of short-term rental ordinance. And I know that people have been talking about that for a long, long time. So that last one there, again, is one of those issues that is not easy. It is not easy to limit the use of how people use their property. It impacts that. But at the end of the day, we have to weigh the best interest of the city and its residents versus some few specific people's needs. At the end of the day, we came to the conclusion that it was far more important to make sure that we have the city that we really, really wanted versus the one that a few. Community engagement. As you can see, there's Gay in her group over at the Culture and Arts, Angie and Christy. We've had neighborhood conversations. One of the things that Cheryl and I were talking about and her was about the 3 or 4 different occasions where they had gone out, city staff had gone out to talk to people in the neighborhoods. And so, like the Parks Board, Sue, thank you so much for bringing that out. They went to the people. You guys meet at some of the parks. They went out to the communities and just sat down and say, hey, how's life going for you? What are the issues that are affecting you? How can we better serve your needs? And then, of course, Blake Lee's Butterfly. That's just all. We were out there that day, and it's a beautiful apparatus. I have 3 daughters, and for all of those who have daughters and sons, the thought of losing one of them in an event like that, the strength of that woman and her family to lose a child and to be out there on that day and to be able to share the excitement for a tribute that will be there and shared for so many years. Which is amazing. We let out about 200 butterflies, and as God would have it, the wind was blowing, and the leaves were leaving the trees, and at the same time the butterflies were leaving a big gust of wind came by, and it looked like 10,000 butterflies. That is Bellaire. That is what we live out, and we take care of each other. Our employees. We have implemented a few policies with regard to our employees. One of the things that is important is that when you have employees, you want them to be happy, but you also want them to work hard and to make sure that they are committed to doing the job. I think we are constantly in that effort. But one of the things that we've done is we've looked at different things. You have to be creative. We only have so much money to deal with. And so one of the things we did is that quality of life is important. So what about floating a holiday policy to include 5 per year so that, because quality of life is important. The money is wonderful. Don't get me wrong. We all need it. We also need time to spend that money or to be with our families. And so that is something that I appreciate Sharon, the city manager, and her leadership group and all the directors for pursuing. We have new training for employees and supervisors, as you can see listed there. And we've updated our workers' compensation injury reporting process. We lost our human resource director this last year, and that was a big loss. Melanie Glaze was not only a wonderful friend to all those in her staff, but she was a wonderful human resource director, and so she will be sorely missed. So I get to this point in time where I just call it SaaS, because I think it's really about the statistics. And so when you talk about the health of the city, and you talk about how we're doing, the question is, what are your statistics look like? Now, the adopted 26 budget calls for general fund appropriations of $31 million. Our enterprise fund of new this last year of $810,000, a debt service fund of almost $10.5 million, a vehicle transfer fund of a little over $800,000, and a capital improvements fund of $83 million. That includes the 54, that includes the 6, that includes the 7, that includes grants as well. But that tells you what we are embarking on. Never before have we embarked on anything so large. And then our special revenue funds. Our budget overall for this coming year that we're developing in calendar year 2025 is $145 million. By way, if you were to look at the 2025 budget projections, so we understand where we came from, we, in our general fund, we budgeted $29 million. It looks as if our projections from August and out will be $28 million. We will have made a little over $1 million. Our enterprise, we anticipate spending 13.6. We project it will be 12.7. I feel like the guy on the news saying drainage utility fund, 175,000. We will likely spend 150. The debt service fund, right about mark. The vehicle transfer fund, we were going to put the money that we have appropriated that into those actual vehicles. And then, of course, in the capital improvement funds for the previous year was a little over $2 million, and then, of course, the special revenue funds. And so, therefore, when we looked at 2025, if you look at the budget and the type of appropriations that we had for 2025, it's $58 million. If I turn the page, then you will see also the Endicott. There we go. The 2025, by way of comparison, and I think this is what really drills this point home, is you've got 2025 at $29 million, 2026 at $31. You can see the increase in the enterprise, the drainage utility fund, the debt service fund, we're paying a little bit more down. The vehicle transfer fund, a little bit less there, but the capital improvement funds is where it goes from $2,138,000 to $83,830,000. And so therefore, as a comparison of 2025 versus 2026. If you compare those budgets with regard to our ending fund balances, which also tells you how did we end the year? What did we have in cash in our accounts? And of course, we budgeted in 25 to have 8.3. As we ended up, we project that 2026 will start out with $10.9 million, and we budget about 10.7 for ending 2026. The enterprise, of course, we budgeted in the year at 1.9. We ended the year at 3.5. We budget 26 at 3.2. Our drainage utility fund, which you can see, those are the budget numbers, very much on task there. And then, of course, the debt utility fund. But I think what it tells you here is that we're budgeting for certain things. It could tell you we're missing the mark slightly, or it could tell you that we're under promising and over delivering with regard to the fiscal conservancy of this not only this council but the staff. And so that is very good news. In just some of the markers, the general fund in 2025, we budgeted to meet our 60-day reserve fund. We did that. Check mark. Enterprise fund. Check. Drainage utility fund. Check. We project that all of those will also be checked at the end of 2020 fiscal year 25, which is on September 30th. And then in 26, we have checks one. What this means, folks, is that if the city got no more money, we would be able to operate for another 60 days no matter what. Now, we can keep working to make that 90, but 60 is pretty darn good. Now, tax rate, because we are all very much interested in the tax rate. Now, the tax rate that we have is 0.41, which we divide in our maintenance and operation fund of 0.30, and then the debt service is 0.11. Look, the law requires us to pay our debt. So the $92 million that we have in debt, whatever we raise in tax revenue is what that tells you. So those numbers can kind of rise and fall depending upon how much debt you have. If you look at, just by way of comparison, Bellaire versus the state average, you can see we're what, 8 cents per 100 lower than the state average. If you look at some of these bar graphs, which I think they're kind of cool, a little nerdy but cool. You love it. As you can see, property tax burden. So what does that tell us? If you look at this bottom idea, it says based on $1.089 million in terms using each jurisdiction's total tax rate and the standard homestead exemption. That means that of all of these towns, where you see Houston, the average excluding Bellaire, and you see where we are, that means that each home, if your home is valued $1 million, you're probably paying $3,600 to the city of Bellaire for every home that you get. People come to us and they say, well, you know, we pay all these taxes. Yep. To Bellaire, we get $3,600 based on $1 million of value. So everything that everyone gets, I know people that have got, you know, their cell phone bills, or their paying Comcast or whoever. DirecTV is more than what they pay totally to the city of Bellaire for getting everything. It is a bargain, no question about it. But it also relies on fiscal, the fiscal policies that the city has implemented to allow all of these things to happen. It's a credit to the staff, it's a credit to the council, our boards and commissions, and all of our residents. If you looked at the pie chart, this is a wonderful pie chart. I know they're oftentimes somewhat difficult, but if you look at that, see where we rate right there. There's our 36, 37, 22% of that same particular $1.089 million value. You can see where all your money goes. And all those are the jurisdictions that take a piece. Bellaire gets your 36, 37. The general fund revenues. Now, this is an interesting one, and this is the reason why economic development is so important to this town. And that is because the majority of all of our funds come from property taxes, whether it's residential or commercial. It is 60% comes from that. We have 13% comes from sales taxes. We've got permits and recreation fees and franchise fees and some other stuff in there. But the bottom line is we are dependent on our property taxes for the things that we do in this town, which is why this council has been looking for other ways to raise revenue, and it isn't just in the fees that we charge our residents for the recreations and all the other types of things. Those are generally, we generally attempt to do pass-throughs on those items from the town. So you can see the incredible reliance that we have on property taxes in this town. The percentage of revenues from property taxes, you can see where we are here. Whereas before we were lower on the list, now we're higher on the list because we are reliant almost 60% on property taxes for our survival. I'm going to just take this moment to tell you that every single year the state government attempts to help its residents and to help the citizens of the state pay less and less taxes. Okay, fair enough. I can get behind that concept. But the problem with it is that when you have towns like Bellaire who are very, very responsible with their money and stay within budget and are providing services that we do, it puts an incredible burden. We can collect, regardless of how the valuations of your homes, the city can collect 3.5% of that increase. So if your home goes up by 8 or 10%, the city of Bellaire can only collect 3.5% of that increase and no more. And so we are capped each and every year. This council will sit, and we will begin shortly, looking at what does our next year, the 26-27 budget, look like. I know Sharon said we're going, please, no. It is a monumental task. But the bottom line is that we as a city have got to continue to look at other opportunities to raise money because of the impeding not conflict, I should say, but interest of the state to continue to drop what they take from the residents, and at the same time, the city's needs to make sure to provide the services that its residents want. That is what that's all about. If you look at the 2026 percentage of revenues from sales taxes, you can see we are conversely way down the list here. Live Oak, at least in this graph, the highest, and Bellaire being towards the bottom, where we've got Southside Place, West University Place. But what's interesting about those is that for anybody who's traveling, we have a far more robust commercial district than either of those two towns. But nevertheless, not given that, we are still not appreciably bigger than what they are, which is something that we're looking to do something about. Again, on your debt per capita, we have $92 million in debt in this town. It was $92 million last year. We continue to pay almost about $7 million in principal debt every year. But remember, we added some this year because we bought the Public Works property and are improving that. But nevertheless, per capita, per dwelling, parents, am I right? Dwelling. We are looking at about $5,000 in debt per dwelling in this town. The uses of our outstanding debt that we have has historically been our streets, drainage, and sidewalks. Not much in sidewalks lately, but mostly in streets and drainage, and I think y'all can see that. We certainly have replaced water lines. That's there. We have municipal facilities, which is a big part of it. And of course, we're continuing to still pay for the buildings that we're in now, which is part of that 24%. That is a percentage of assessed value. You can see that we're pretty good. We're kind of in the middle, a little bit more than average, but pretty decent in that regard, which is why we are AAA bond rated and continue to be so, because we have the capacity to borrow money. Doesn't mean we have to, it just means we can. And of course, as I mentioned to you before, last year this time I told you that the debt was $92 million, and certainly it is still that way. Although we continue to pay somewhere in the neighborhood of about $7 million. Here. Now we look over at Terrence and now, let's move over to our fire department with regard to our statistics. Call for service and fire. In 2023, we had 611, 746, and 628. Calls from EMS, as you can see, those stayed about the same. The Bellaire average time for fire, of course, has gone down to 231. Our fire department has done a heck of a job. And our new fire chief, Davis Farquhar, Davis, congratulations. He's going to carry on that tradition. He is homegrown. He has been part of this fire department. He knows what it's about. And we just took on the duties of also being our emergency response team manager as well. And so we know that Davis is going to do a great job in continuing a long line tradition of great fire chiefs in this town. The national average of fire is 4 minutes. We beat that by a good minute and a half. Bellaire average response time EMS, again, just about 3 minutes. National average is about 7 minutes. Those are on par with Bellaire by their comparison to the rest of the country. For police, calls for service handled by dispatch. In 2023, we had 38,000. It upticked in 24, and in 25, 43,000. Police-only calls for service, again, uptick. Average time for non-emergency calls is that 5 minutes, and the average time for top priority calls gets to that 448. And when Shane and I were talking about it, I asked him, I said, what about emergencies? When that drops by a good bit. When that 448, it drops to 2 or 3 minutes from talking to Shane. So within that, don't be alarmed, because everybody that I talk to says that not only our fire, but our police are there in lickety-split time, and they are. If you need them, they'll be there. Traffic stops have gone up from 8,500 to 9,600, and then now they're up to 12,846. Traffic stops cleared with a citation. I understand, I know that that's a bit deceiving, but in that 12,000, you have arrests, you have warrants issued. There are a variety of other things in there as well. The point of this is to make contact with people that come through our town. And so if you are coming through our town, you know that people are looking at what you're doing, and if you're doing something wrong, somebody's going to say, hello. I've gotten stopped 3 times. They said hello. Now, we've got a percentage of traffic stops cleared with citation, 21.4%. There, traffic stops as a percentage of total causes falls to 22.4. Crashes, it's about the same. And of course, we've got an uptick. Well, it's been about the same from 24 to 25 with regard to arrests. Those are some of your statistics for the police. Development services, I think this is fascinating. In 2024, we had new home construction of 40, and 25 we had 55 with new home values of $41 million. So that you know, new home values are not limited to that 3.5%. And so it is very important that we continue to build new homes in the city of Bellaire, because the city actually is not limited to that 3.5%. And so I often looked at that to see what's happening. I think most of y'all know, and then I looked at the demolition, and while some of those demolition numbers in 2025, that 44 is connected to the home remodel for new home construction 55, not all of them. So maybe it's split about half and half from what I understand Travis was telling me. And so consequently, what that means is that we are demolishing homes and new homes will be coming up. And I think many of you, when you go around our city, will see that there are certainly some empty lots around here, and there certainly could be more development there too. So we are continuing to move on that front as well. Our library, gate counts. As you can see, we've got 81,000 in 2024 and 73,000 in 2025. But we have also enhanced our programs with regard to our circulation. You see where the circulation's gone from 185 to 233. That's the important statistic, because I think we're going into a couple of other counties, correct? And so consequently, and we have got attendees as uptick as well, and our programs increased from 303 to 335. The question's going to become, very quickly, what do we do about our library? That is going to be another question that comes before council, and will be coming soon. Parks, recreation, and facilities. You heard what our Parks Board is doing, and now our Parks Division in the city. As you can see, the statistics here speak for themselves. With regard to each year, our participants have increased at least, let's see, Campus A in the summer, that's increased by a bit. We've got youth basketball about the same, youth basketball in the summer, little uptick there. There's revenue that's generated from that. It's no small change, but they do a lot of work. And as you can tell, you've got basketball, you've got soccer, you've got volleyball, and we have swimming. One of these days, Ryan, we have that pickleball division, right? Right. Now, we have, looking at our employee situation, and what's interesting about that is the notion that this fluctuates from time to time. And as we sit here in December of 2025, we have 11 vacancies. We had 15 there in March, goes down to 12, goes to 10, and we're 11. Several of those are in the police department. No question about it. I think we've got 3 officer positions and 4 patrolmen. We have movement in pretty much most of our departments. Not all of them, but we have movement. We train our police officers. We train our firefighters and our EMS folks. And so therefore they're coveted. One of our captains, I think, went off and is now he's the police chief in another town. This is growth. This is progress. Where our folks are doing better and they're moving on. And so therefore we've got a constant position of continuing to bring in folks, but we have to train them. And so it takes a bit of time. I think our statistics are that we have 43 officers in this town. We are about 36 to 37 right now. counting some of those vacancies, which we will be filling. And then we have 16 non-officer positions that we were full there. So our police department, just for statistics' sake alone, is sitting at roughly almost about 60 in terms of what it was we had full capacity. We have personnel updates, director and senior manager departures. We had our fire chief, Big and Tittle, who went on to bigger and bigger things with regard to the county. It's a much bigger area. It was a very big jump for Weekland. But had he not been here, and he had not done what he'd done here, he wouldn't be having that job. Our police chief, Mo Lopez, resigned, so we will be having a national search to replace that. Of course, I talked to you about Melanie Blaze, our director of human resources, our assistant public works director, to be able to salad. So these are some of the things where we have movement. Our assistant library director, Shazley Dodson, and then of course our three staff and some faculty. But we have new hires. Fire Chief Davis Farquhar, as I mentioned to you, our director of capital projects, Mayor, who is seated in the back, our assistant fire chief, T.J. Burt, assistant public works director, Ulf Kugelman. Look, when somebody leaves, it gives the opportunity for somebody to come forward and to stretch their legs and do good work. These are good problems to have, even though we're training some really good folks for other cities. Now, this next part is the part that I look at and I always think, this really is great. It's really, really great. But it's really great. And so, from that perspective, what you need to know is this, is that this council every single year looks at what they are doing from a strategic plan perspective. And we have developed a strategic plan that is annually reviewed for a look-see of 3 years before us. We look at it from basically, one more, 5 different categories. We look at our community through our service programs. We look at our governance with regard to how we are governing this town. We look at our infrastructure and asset management. We look at our public safety, and we look at our land use and zoning. From my perspective, that covers the 5 big areas of what the city is all about. Public safety, land use, what our city looks like, our infrastructure, make sure our foundation is clear, make sure we govern fairness and equality, and what our community looks like in terms of what do we do in this town to make life in Bellaire great. So we get to our community. As you can see, this is what we see on a weekly basis. Our governance, you're here in this room here. This is what we're talking about. Infrastructure and asset management, we talked about that and what we have done and what we are about to do. Public safety, there's our car. You see our officers on the street with our Bellaire National Champion 2000. We can do some of that. We need another one. Brian, you're working on that? On that 2000 Water Tower National Championship? All right. Land use and zoning, and I think you've heard from Jamie Perkins and her group going on with regard to that and the strategic and the comprehensive plan effort. And then, of course, we focus in on life in Bellaire, and this is the fun part. I'm going to take you through this because, to me, this makes Brian Pappas, right down the square in the great lawn. Wind's there on the bottom, right? I've got to tell you, that takes me back to Saturday mornings when I'm watching National Bandstand and Soul Train. I'm telling you. Johnny, you're looking good too. There is our Bellaire trolley run. I stayed out of the way, and you can see with the onrush. That was just the kids' starting line. What a wonderful event.
Wait, Gus, I'm in that starting line. What?
You are? Go back. Hold on. Go back.
Yeah, I was in the kids' race. Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you are.
The banner. I went with the kids.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
The next shot, you're pushing through the kids.
Hey,
like, I'm going to win.
I'm trying to win, okay? I'm using the advantage.
It looks like you're looking at them going, get out of my way. That's great. Our Henshaw House, our Centennial Celebration and Nature Discovery Center. We didn't mention a whole lot about that, but they're embarking on their own program, and many of y'all who went to the gala about a month or two ago saw the incredible things that are going on with regard to the Nature Discovery Center, in addition to Evergreen Park. Of course, we've got our Arts and Crafts Festival at Paseo Park. Y'all heard Jay talk about that. What a wonderful revival. And our Independence Day Parade and Festival, which will take on new meaning this coming year for the 250th anniversary of our nation. We've got Camp Paseo. As you can see, all the kids in our library. You've got, oh, there we go, the cardboard regatta. I was just commenting how those cardboard boats have gotten a lot better over the coming years. They're not sinking 5 yards into the wheel. That's a wonderful event for anybody that wants to come see. And of course, we've got Bark in the Park, Everest Park. One of the things that I didn't mention was that I believe that Paseo Park is now a trail. And the significance of that is that you can walk your dogs on a trail where you couldn't in the park. And so that area and its walking areas are now available for that purpose. The David Walk. Our law enforcement torch run benefiting Special Olympics. For anybody that's not been a part of anything with regard to Special Olympics, and we just further what we should. Our National Night Out. On Tuesdays, I guess it's the 1st or 2nd October, Tuesdays in October, and we have a chance to go out and just see our residents. And it's a beautiful night, and they sit and they bring the food out. It's a potluck scenario, and for me, I love that opportunity because I get a chance to just say hello to folks that are otherwise just that I might not ever see. And our police officers are there, as well as our Bellaire Fire Truck and Rescue. Kids love that. Next, we have our high water truck pulls. So those guys look really, really big, and I think they even place. So you can imagine what the guys that won the thing look like. They're huge individuals. They pull this truck about 50 feet from a dead stop, and it weighs many tons. And they do it for Special Olympics. And the Special Olympics kids come, and they're in front, and they're pulling it, and they're small, and all these people from the back hidden from them, and they're pushing, and they get the best time. The smiles on those kids' faces. There's our Culture and Arts Board with regard to the community cookbook and launch party. I think what Gay said was best was that it provides not only a cookbook for everybody to enjoy, but it's a long-lasting history of the city of Bellaire. Congratulations to you, Bill, for doing that. The Great Pumpkin Hunt in Lofton Park. I saw that picture and I said, man, those pumpkins are small. And I don't know that too many of those found their way into Giles and but I know, I just want to tell you, we took our pumpkins and we put them in that dumpster. And then we got Lafayette Park ribbon cutting, and you heard about that from the Parks Department. Lafayette Park was over there by sort of on the southwest part of town, and the play structure behind there was just put there. The great thing about this is that this was a collaboration between patrons for Bellaire Parks and the city park system. There have now been probably no less than about maybe 8 to 10 to 12 of our 14 parks in which patrons has combined with the city, joined with the city, of getting new play structure in some parks. The other fabulous thing about that is that that area is going to about to be undertaking incredible revival when all of that area just gets leveled and we start putting green space and what have you. And very soon, we'll ultimately consummate our deal with the city of Houston. We'll get that property and we'll get started. But it is all about change is progress, and as I've said, progress. Our holiday in the park, Bellaire Town Square, we of course did that. This was a return winner for the drawings, and she actually did it herself, so that was nice. There were some changes as a result of the rain, and I think those changes were good. One of the things that I love about this town is that when we do things, if it's something that we can do better, we try and do it. We're not afraid to do them. And I think that Ryan, your group close the street down like we do on so many other occasions, and we had a wonderful event, and I think everybody appreciated that. And Santa was there as always. Shop with a Cop is a wonderful program that, with regard to right around holiday time, and as you can see, there are children that are part of things. This is the David work that goes on in this town that we don't see on a daily basis. Shane, thanks so much for you and the work that you did up there, as well as the rest of the guys in the force. Blakely's Butterfly. This was here recently, and this was a picture of patrons that are staff members, council members, and just people who just love to do something nice. As you can see, there's the butterfly in the back, and that's over there in Joe Baker Park, over there on the north side, about 75 feet from where Blakely lived. What a wonderful tribute to her and an everlasting memory to her bright, shining face. So I say thank you to you all. We have spent a tremendous amount of time in this town working very hard to make this the kind of place. It is about service. Those of you who come forward and serve on the boards and commissions, and those of you who come serve and seek to serve on the council, it is all about service. And for what we get out of it is the pride and pleasure of a job well done, the help that we get from our staff, the relationships that we develop with them, the relationships that we develop with the residents, and the smiles on the faces of the children and the adults that participate in these programs. That is the reward for service. But as we close the book on 2025, and we look at all of those events that we saw, I think we are reminded of why we live in this town. It is about fun, it is about safety, and it is about family. And at the end of the day, it is why we are always looking to the future and looking to the stars, and understanding and appreciating that change is in fact progress, and progress. And so here we grow, and we will grow together. Thank you all for all of your hard work this 2025. I look forward to a wonderful 2026, and God bless. Okay. Well, thank y'all. And for those of you who sat and watched it on TV, thank you for participating. This is really a real pleasure to get to talk about the wonderful things that the city has done. And so we'll take this up. We will look forward to another hard year. And we will come back in another year and talk about what we did this last year. So with that, I thank all of you this evening, and we are at a point in time in our meeting